Corrigan, who's going to talk about LGBT issues. Sarah, just give a little plug for that before we go for Lynn tonight's presentation, if you could.
Yes, I can. So Dr. Corrigan works in private practice as an LCSW and has additional education. She was an LGBT veteran care coordinator at a VA medical center in St. Louis, Missouri, and has done extensive work, presentations for NASW, I think their Wisconsin chapter. She did a session 2 years ago related to intersectionality between LGBT identities and mental health. We know there's increased risk for self-harm, mental health issues, and suicidality. So she's going to talk about some of those things as well as resilience and some skill building for that population next month.
All right, thank you, Sierra. So we'll be sending out a flyer for that, hopefully in the next week, perhaps. So keep that in mind for the June 15th meeting at 6 o'clock. All right, so tonight we have Lynn Presswood is going to talk about her journey, and I'll have Paul Brown, someone that works with her, introduce her. Lynn and Paul are both board members. They both work at the Family and Children's Center, and they've been on our board here for some time now. Lynn, I think you were on the board in Vernon prior to coming to La Crosse, and we kind of merged with Vernon, so you came with them and represent all their interest and all that. But Paul, go ahead and introduce Lynn Presswood for tonight, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, Todd. Lynn is, I'll just say, multi-talented. Lynn's been in a number of different roles. I know she has worked for Walmart for several years, but more importantly, she is a Family and Children's Center employee. She's a very trusted employee. She is responsible for running our what we call the Other Door Drop-In Center, which is a facility that unfortunately has been closed because of COVID, but we're looking at reopening that. So Lynn has been very involved in that. Even though it's been closed, it's been open for limited periods of time for the AA and NA community. And Lynn has been down there facilitating a NAMI group. Lynn, it's Recovery Through Sharing, and also a family support group down there. Lynn is a peer support specialist. She's also been facilitating a group for NAMI up in La Crosse. And that's been done through Zoom. So as Todd has mentioned, she's also a board member. I'm forgetting exactly how long you've been on the board, but I want to say about 3 years now, because you came on about a year after I did, and I've been on the board for about 4 years. So, so Lynn has done quite a few things, and very valued board member and service provider within our organization through Family and Children's Center, and very active with NAMI. So Lynn has a story to share. She's had her own journey with mental health concerns. And so Lynn, I'll turn it over to you. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Let's see. Okay. I still have a little bit of trouble with the sharing screen. Should have been easier.
Are you trying to share the screen, Lynn?
Yeah, and I need to get to the right.
Well, do I have to
Page
make you a co-host?
Oh shoot, now what am I doing?
Oh, you're listed as a co-host.
Now it stopped.
already.
Yeah, I'm trying to find my desktop for PowerPoint. Somehow, there we go. That's not mine.
That's Helen's.
Yeah. I need my desktop. Somehow I got confused. I am so sorry, people.
Don't worry, we'll get it.
Okay, there we
That's
go.
okay. It's a technical glitch here. So Ellen, can you double check to make sure Lynn is?
Here, I'm on
Okay,
mine.
I see
I'm
it.
on mine. I just needed to. There we go. Enjoy the cat. Okay. My journey through mental illness, I have divided it into 4 or 5 different parts. I will talk briefly about my childhood, just a little brief. And then I will talk about my dark days, about when I was first diagnosed and first started showing symptoms. I have to get the door because I'm at work. Hello? Come in. And then I will be talking about acceptance and my door's locked. I'm so sorry. Then I will be talking about the acceptance of having mental illness and having to go through the journey and stuff. And then talk about the process of finding what the right treatment and medication was for me. And then I will share some of my successes and where I am today. My childhood.
Do you guys
As a
see your PowerPoint?
Pardon me?
Does everyone see your PowerPoint? I just see AVG tune-up.
I don't see a PowerPoint either.
What? Okay. I am so sorry. Your screen. You see it now?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
Yeah.
you
All
got it.
right, Lynn, that's all right.
Okay, so I can go back to this real quick here. I'll be talking about my childhood, my dark days, my acceptance, my treatment, and where I am today. First, about my childhood. I knew from an early age that I did not fit into my family. I felt like an outsider looking in. I never felt like I was accepted by my parents or my brothers. I always, for some reason, felt different. My mom always told me that I was nothing but trouble since the day I was conceived, and I could never do anything right, and that you know. But I had my grandparents, and they showed me the love and affection and what love was. So at an early age, as long as I can remember, I chose to take after them. I considered them my parents. And I talked about them so much during my childhood that people thought I lived with them and not with my real family. And one of my biggest dreams while I was growing up was that my real parents would come and get me. But in my dark days, like I said, I felt that I was different. So I might have had depression for a long time, which I didn't know. But I started showing signs and symptoms when I was a senior in high school. I was going through a very difficult time with my mom, and which involved my dad taking my mom's side, of course. And I got to the point where I didn't feel safe at school because I didn't know what was going to happen when I got home from school. It was so bad at home. one day I found myself in the bathroom and I took my dad's razor and I started cutting on my arms. And to this day, I still don't know why I did that. I can't explain it. I don't know where I got the idea, but I knew it made me feel better. And I liked the blood coming out, but I wasn't sure why. And I didn't think nothing of it because they weren't deep or anything. They were just superficial, like cat scratches or something. I grew up with cats, so. But I got going and I couldn't stop. So I would go to school and I would have to wear a jacket. And then I started burning my arms. And I don't know how I started doing that either, or where I got that idea either. But I liked the feeling of pain for some reason. And it kind of distracted me. And as things got worse at home, the impulses to hurt myself got worse. One of my friends at school discovered that I was harming myself, and she made me show her my arms to her, and I was scared because I didn't know what was going to happen. And next thing I knew, I went to my class, typing class, and next thing I knew, I had to pass to go to my guidance counselor. Well, the guidance counselor I called somebody from 211 to come and talk to me. And I had to promise that I would stop. And I thought I could. I thought I could stop because I didn't know for sure what was going on. And they gave me a telephone number to call in case I ever felt like hurting myself. But the thing was, I couldn't use the phone. My mom would disconnect the phone and I wouldn't be able, if I connected the phone, I'd be in trouble. So there was no way I could call anybody. But for some reason, when I got home, I couldn't stop hurting myself. Well, then one day, I went to Grip Trip because Grip Trip was right by my high school. And we all went, that was our popular hangout spot before school. And I bought some pills and I told my friend I was going to kill myself. Well, this friend immediately went to the guidance counselor, and an by seventh hour, I got called to the vice principal of the school came and called me, and everyone made fun of me because you got called by the vice principal, you're in trouble. And he took me down to the counselor, and I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but next thing I knew, there were cops coming to the guidance counselor. And I'm like, what's going on? And we talked some more. It's all in bits and pieces, this part is. But I remember a cop telling me that he called my mom, and my mom said she didn't have a daughter. She didn't have time to talk to him. She had to get to work. And that I was the one with the issues. And I just burst out crying because I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. My mom just totally disowned me. And what was happening? Where was I going? I didn't know. And they walked me down this senior class hallway in front of all my friends with an officer on both sides of me. And I was so embarrassed. And so I ended up in the hospital for the first time. And the only way that I could go back home was if my parents agreed to get family therapy. And my mom said that there was no way. They didn't need therapy. They didn't have any issues, only I did. And so I was not allowed to go back home. My grandparents wanted to take me, but my psychiatrist at the time said no. My grandparents couldn't take me because my parents would have too much access to me and I needed to stay away from my parents. So I ended up in an adult group home in La Crosse. Thankfully, my grandpa would come and get me and I could continue high school in Alaska. I ended up in ended up having to go to Madison, but because I did everything possible to get out of this group, I turned very rebellious because I was scared. So that leads to acceptance. And I had to learn a lot of different things. And in the process of going through everything and realizing I couldn't go home, couldn't go to my grandparents, and I felt like I had nobody. And I had to relearn everything I learned as a child. I was not allowed to feel anything at home with my parents, and I was not allowed to speak my feelings or anything. And now all of a sudden, I was expected to talk and express feelings. And, you know, I had to learn to have patience, and I had to learn about medication. And that took quite a while. Trying to find the right combination of medication. And for about 2 years, while I was seeing a psychiatrist, nobody ever got me a therapist. And I felt inside that I needed a therapist. And I was trying to, with my social worker, to get a therapist. And it took quite a while. In about 1992, I think, I finally got a therapist. And she helped me learn some coping skills and stuff. And I had a couple of their psychiatrists, and got one that I kind of didn't like. But over time, I set him in place, he set me in place, and we kind of got a working relationship. And I was in a what you called it back in the 90s, a halfway house. And I was there for a while. I was in and out of the hospital quite a bit while I was trying to fight the urges of suicide and cutting on myself and stuff. But through therapy, I did learn how to manage my thoughts and urges and stuff. And while I was going through this, I was somehow able to maintain a part-time job, and I was also going to college. But it was a hard balancing act. Let's see. For treatment, yeah, I think the best thing that helped me was when I got a therapist. I found a very good one that worked with me. She took my anger, temperaments, and tantrums that I can throw when I'm angry, and my sassiness and stuff when I'm angry. But my grandparents helped me a lot, and they went through as much as I did pretty much because they didn't know how to help me at first, and they had to go through some learning. And one thing through the whole journey was I knew that if I had a pet because I grew up with animals. That helped prevent me from suicide attempts because I knew that if I had a cat or a pet, nobody would be able to take as good a care of these animals as I would. So I had a reason to live, and it was to take care of these animals. And the two cats on the posters are the two cats that helped me the most. And I also would use gardening as a tool to help. But I think the main thing that worked for me was that my psychiatrist and my therapist were in the same place. They were both in the county of La Crosse, and they worked in the same building at Human Services. And in 1993, I might cry, I'm sorry, my brother committed suicide. And I had mixed emotions about that. I understood where he came from, but I was also mad at him. I was mad at him because he succeeded and left me. I was mad at him because he did it. And I just had mixed emotions. Couple months after he committed suicide, my dad tried suicide. And I didn't know how to take that one at all. I think I kind of avoided that one. But my psychiatrist and my therapist both sat me down, both of my psychiatrists, and he said, now I know that depression runs in your family, and I'm not going to take you lightly. When you say you're going to commit suicide or hurt yourself, I'm not joking around with you anymore. I am dead serious, and I am dead serious with you, and I'm not going to take anything lightly. You just mention it, and I'm not going to hesitate anymore. It runs in your family. And that's what got everything going, and I started turning around. And got determined. And I got my own apartment. I went into first adult foster home so I could learn how to pay bills and live on my own, because I went from my parents to halfway houses to an adult group home. And then I went to my own apartments. And I had setbacks, but I slowly learned how to take care of myself. And now I've got my own house. I did graduate high school. When I was in Madison, they told me that it was very important for me to go to high school and graduate with my class in 91. Because I had enough credits, and the school worked and converted some of my credits to the credits that I needed, so I was able to graduate. And while I was in my depression, even during my worst times, I went to college and I studied childcare and development. And part of that was because I wanted to be if I ever had kids, I wanted to be better than what my parents were. And so I took childcare and development to give kids what I didn't get. And I graduated college. And now I have my own house. And I am now I was with my mom when she died. And I've learned to accept what my parents did, but not forgive them. Or maybe the other way around. Forgive them, but not accept. I don't know. But I've decided as an adult to, what they happened as a kid happened as a kid. Now that I'm adult, I can choose when to leave. And if they do anything, I can just leave. Don't have to take it as an adult. And so I ended up taking care of my mom when she was dying, and now I'm taking care of my dad while he's dying. And it's kind of ironic to me, still kind of surprises me now. I worked with Walmart for 15 years. I just recently this month quit Walmart so that I could work at the drop-in center more and work with Family Children's Center more. I volunteered for 15 years with the La Crosse Community Thanksgiving Dinner. And I volunteered several years for the Red Cross. And I guess during my student teaching, I did save a kid's life from choking. But I guess that is my story. If anybody has any questions. I think by going through all this, it has made me a stronger person. And I think I have more compassion for other people. And that's about it.
Well, Lynn, thank you very much for sharing that story. I know it's a little hard to do that because of what you have to relive, but it's always good to remember where you came from as you go forward to keep yourself focused on where you want to be and not go back to those dark places, as you call them. And you've done a remarkable job of overcoming those issues. And I really appreciate that you're strong enough to share it with others so they can learn from that and have some insight into what people are going through, because mental health is so stigmatized in our society that most people hold it in and allow it to fester before they get help. And as you said, suicides happen. People are in despair. They don't enjoy their lives. And you broke from that and were able to get some assistance and help that you needed, and were able to build a good life for yourself. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So any questions? Go ahead, Paul.
Lynn, some of the things that strike me in particular just about your story is the way you've been able to turn such a negative into so many positives. And I guess what I think of there are the fact that you are participating actively in things now, just with respect to the work that you're doing on the board, the work that you're doing with facilitating groups, the work that you're doing for your employer at Family and Children's Center with taking care of the drop-in center. But I also want to point out to you, and as well as everybody else on the meeting, the other positive things that you've done in terms of volunteering your time, being at the Red Cross, volunteering, I think you said 15 years for the Thanksgiving meal. So you do a remarkable, I'm going to use the word job, but that's not the right word, just a remarkable involvement, a remarkable job with respect to giving so much back. So yeah, I think that's very impressive. In terms of a question, you kind of jumped from, you know, the story of how bad things were to suddenly being better, and I'm feeling like there's more that could be shared just in terms of what worked for you, what made the biggest difference that you could jump from, you know, from all that you've been through to the positive person that you are now. Is there something you would highlight there?
Well, I think it was after what my brother did, it kind of opened my eyes. And I think what having the connection with my psychiatrist and my therapist working in the same building and them two working together is what really worked.
Okay.
You know, because they were able to communicate with each other, and they both agreed after my brother committed suicide that they weren't going to mess around with me anymore. They knew it ran in my family after my dad got put in the hospital too.
Yeah.
They weren't gonna joke around with me anymore, as they said. You say suicide, you say you can hurt yourself, you're going in immediately.
Okay.
And I
So
think
is
it
it,
was,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I think it was the fact that they both worked together. They both buckled down after after what happened with my brother and my dad, and them working together.
Mhm. Okay.
I
So,
think I think that's the key thing to help people get better is a support. Oh gosh, I'm getting into preaching now. Is the support of everyone working together as one group.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that's what I was going to second there, because it sounds like there's two things. It's that relationship. The psychiatrist, I'm not sure if he wasn't taking you seriously, or it sounds like a relationship built there, and that
Mhm.
maybe initially you were just like another client coming through the door, but he finally realized just the impact that your child experiences were really having on you, and the message got across through that relationship. But the other thing
Well,
that I hear is that connection, and I think of the types of services that are available now through programs like a community support program, a CCS program, the fact that we have NAMI, and just getting that connection, and the idea that the therapist and the psychiatrist were in the same building, because there's been a tendency that if somebody's involved with multiple providers, that they're in
Mhm.
silos, that you talk
Right.
to the doctor about this, you talk to the chemical dependency person about this, talk
Yep.
to the mental health counselor about this, and nobody ever talks to one another to
Right.
work together. And so your story and your response to my question illustrates the importance of that, and that for
Right.
anybody on this meeting that's getting services, make sure who is ever providing services is talking to the other people that are providing services, so that you're all on the same page.
Yeah, because I know nowadays I don't like having my therapist in one place and my psychiatrist in a different place. And my psychiatrist isn't my psychiatrist. He is actually a MD. He's great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, the psychiatrist I had, nobody liked him. But I saw him straight a couple times. And uh Judge, you might know him, Dr. Gusty. He's an old timer, long time ago from the 80s.
Yeah, I worked with him in the old
Yeah.
days, I guess, if you want to say that.
Yeah. So it was hard to build a relationship with him until I did a few things to set him straight, and then he set me straight. So
Mhm.
it was a kind of a combination of the two.
Okay.
It does take time to work through. I mean, you said you didn't like some of your therapists. Well, people need to know that they can find a different one if they want to,
I
but
worked,
sometimes it just takes time to build that trust and that relationship up too.
I had the same therapist for 17 years. And that was very helpful too.
Mhm.
That's good for that connection, but I thought you said you had one you didn't like at one point.
There.
Did you
No,
say
that was a psychiatrist.
the psychiatrist you didn't like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing for me. I mean, it's psychiatrist, therapist, all the different people working with. If you don't like them, move on to
Right.
somebody you can find that you like. There's plenty out there, and everyone
Yeah.
has different personalities and they click differently together. So that's a good lesson for people to know too, that you don't have to stay with one you don't like.
Mhm.
So good.
But yeah, it helped too having the same therapist for.
Yeah.
And when she retired, I had a little tailspin, but
Well, that happens too. I see
yeah,
Yvonne wants to ask a question or make a comment that
yes.
we were going to have her give her story once a while back, but because of things, it just didn't get to it. Maybe we'll get you back to do that sometime, but go ahead, Yvonne.
I hope so. Lynn, you did an awesome job. I'm really, really excited about it. It's
Thank you.
difficult to share those things, but when I've shared my story, things became clearer to me. I felt like I maybe got to know myself better, and I recognized some of my triggers that I hadn't noticed before. Was the process of this helpful for you?
I've done it before. Um This time, for some reason, it was a little bit harder. Because I talked about being there for my mom and about my dad dying right now, and talking about my brother's suicide, which I've gone over in therapy a little bit. So that part was a little bit harder this time. Because, well, there's some family issues going on too with my brother. So, but I won't get into that. So it was a little bit harder this time with new circumstances going on within my family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking my place.
Okay, anyone else have any thoughts or comments or questions for Lynn? All right, well, again, thank you so much, Lynn, for sharing that. Again, personal stories like that are what really open people's eyes up to the problems people face that have mental health issues, because like I said, there's so much stigma. People don't want to let those out. And the more people that can explain that, sooner or later, they'll find out that just about everybody has some level of issues with their own mental well-being. And, some people can take care of it to a pretty good extent, and other people totally struggle and have catastrophic events happen because of that, and everyone in between. But the more that gets out, hopefully the more the stigma is lessened, and the more people that need the help can open up and request that help. There's a lot of organizations that try to train others to help look for people struggling and to pull them in, and hopefully understanding that people can at least talk to that person that they think is struggling. And sometimes that makes all the difference, just to show that there's somebody there that respects them and cares for them, and hopefully that can help get a good result down the road. Right.
One thing,
Yeah.
one thing that I am proud of is that I took after my grandparents, and that's why I do what I do now, is because I want to help people. I didn't feel like there was anybody I could talk to, and so now what I'd like to do is be there for other people and help other people through their mental health issues or any other issues they may have.
Well, it's very good. You do a very good job with that. But the thing is you're now connected to so many people that help people, that if you end up struggling, so many people you can ask and get you back on the right path, whether you are even telling them that you are having an issue. So that's another good reason to have that connection and give back that way and keep you focused on keeping yourself on the right path.
Lynn, I also think that that's what the importance is of being a peer specialist, because those of us that, we go to school, we don't necessarily have many problems growing up, that sort of thing. It's always easy to sit back as a provider and go, oh, yeah, and I'm the expert and tell you what to do, and you need this and you need that, and kind of prescribe what's best. And the difference with a peer support specialist is you have that lived experience, and that I think people who are hurting as you were can really relate to you better. And I think that's one of the things that makes you such a good group facilitator, is because you've been there. But the other piece to that is, I always hear this phrase, the idea that recovery is possible. And that's a really important phrase, and I strongly believe that. But there is a time, I can't speak for everybody, but I think there's a time it's like, oh, a mental illness, oh gosh, how are you going to, lifelong, how are you going to get over that? And you can hear recovery is possible, but it makes a big difference to actually see someone, as well as others, that has gone through that, and not only is feeling better and isn't thinking about suicide or making threats or making attempts or anything like that, but not only the absence of that, but the fact that you are able to put yourself out there and help other people and be that inspiration. So that truly is something to be proud of as well. So, yeah, so nice going. Nice
Thank you.
survivor story.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening.
Then I have a question.
Yeah.
Your grandparents were such great support to you. How did they manage to get through everything? Was there someone to help them, to help understand what was happening with you, and someone to work with them? And how are they doing now?
Well, unfortunately, my grandma died in 96 and my grandpa died in 97.
Okay.
There was, as far as I know, no help available for them at that time because this was back in the 90s. My grandma was just as confused, and my grandma was really, really mad when I couldn't go home with them. And the psychiatrist said that, my parents would have too much access to me and that I needed to get away from my parents. And my grandma was very mad about that. She didn't believe in me going to an adult halfway house. But back then there was no help for my grandparents that I know of.
I'm just concerned about that because people who have mental health issues in their family, people who have had alcohol or drug abuse issues in their family, sometimes we forget about the extended family, and that extended family also needs a whole lot of help and assistance and support.
I know my grandma went through a very hard time accepting it. And she tried to get my mom to relax on me and stuff. And so my grandma kind of felt like she was in the middle, trying to get her daughter, my mom, to be a support to me and stuff. And back then, I just don't think that there was anything for them.
I would just like us as NAMI people to remember that and probably, think about how we can, reach out to those families who are struggling with this as well. I know we have the family support group, but I think that, we really need, to do a lot more work on that, because we have to strengthen the family to help strengthen the individuals having the issues as well.
Well, what I've thought of in the past, and is like, if there's a psych unit or something, have peer specialists up there, and for the extended family or something, or for people who have visitors, to help out in between and help with the system and stuff. Because I know back in the 90s, that was the thing I had the most trouble with, and so did my grandma and grandpa, about what was going to happen next.
Well, one of the issues can be HIPAA though, too. So if you have a person that's 18 or over, they have their privacy rights, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard for family members to even know what the heck is going on with them unless they give consent.
Consent.
It's judged even from, I think it's about the age of 14,
Yeah,
there's privacy issues with
yep, it goes
behavioral
down. I
health.
was just starting with the
Yep.
adults though, but yes.
I know.
And so that's a big problem. And I've had people put on, I guess they call them 90-day stipulations, and it doesn't include a waiver of privacy, so the family can help keep them, in line on there. And we've had fatal results as a result of that. So maybe the laws need to be changed a little bit and get rid of some of the stigma on mental health and open it up more so people can be more open and understand and get the information they need to be able to help those that so often push out others away because they don't want to admit that they themselves have that issue, or are embarrassed with it, or what have you. So there's a lot of things that can still be changed, even though you say things were different in the 90s, they still could be hopefully different next year or a few years down the road.
Well, I know when I first started going in the hospital and stuff, I pushed my grandparents away because I didn't want to be a burden. And I didn't want them to worry about me. That was my problem.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of work going on. I think at the state level, we've been talking about that, and probably at the national level is to have, you know, more people being able to share their stories with, you know, legislators and people who are making the laws so that they can understand the value. You know, sometimes families should not be involved, but there are lots of times families should be involved, and, you know, trying to, you know, get that access, because we're never going to help people if they don't have a strong support network. You know, you can have an informal support network, you can have a formal support network. So keep, you know, when I keep pushing the emails out to you guys about what's going on, take a look at mental health advocacy and some of the things that they're trying to do, because they're trying to, you know, change some of the current laws and try to, you know, make it more accessible for people to get the help they need and be able to work with the families so that, you know, we can be successful.
I was going to say also that when I was working at the state with peer specialists, we were really working to get peer specialists in the emergency department, because I kept seeing where the family member, whoever had come to the end of their rope that ended up taking them into emergency, were usually really angry with them. And, you know, they were just at ends. And so to help, I not mediate, but be able to help with that communication, that the person that is experiencing the crisis, and be able to just help inform the staff that's working and the, you know, what they're really feeling or what their issues or where they're having a harder time, because it could be so much smoother and so much easier if there was someone that was really hearing them. And sometimes that's all we want, is someone that could really hear us. What we're trying to say, what we're trying to do, makes a big difference, makes a really big difference. So when I go and speak at schools and stuff, and with nurses training and stuff, I really encourage, just take the time to slow down and listen. So.
Right. Anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make here tonight? I think this was a very good, informative, eye-opening presentation by you, Lynn. And Lynn, I'm not going to read all the comments, but there's been quite a few comments where people really, truly appreciated what you shared here tonight. And I hope you look at those before you get off the call here.
Yeah, and I want to thank you thank you everyone for the comments and for listening.
Well, you keep up your journey. It's a
Okay,
good one
thank you.
now. And look forward to seeing you the next time around.
Okay.
All right, well, I think that's it for tonight then. If nobody else has anything, remember next month we'll have another general session, and hopefully whoever joins us can